You're not bad at achieving goals. You're just trying to build a skyscraper without laying the foundation first. I spent years thinking I was broken because every goal I set felt like pushing a boulder uphill. New Year's resolutions, dead by February. Career aspirations, buried under Netflix binges and existential dread. Fitness goals? Well, let's just say my gym membership was basically expensive guilt therapy. But here's what nobody tells you about goals. They don't fail because you lack willpower. They fail because you're using a system designed to break you. You're playing a rigged game where the house always wins, and the house is your own self-sabotage. 3 years ago, I was staring at another failed attempt to get my life together, whatever that means. I had tried everything. Vision boards, habit trackers, motivational podcasts that made me feel inspired for exactly 12 minutes. The cycle was exhausting. Set goal, get excited, start strong, hit the first real obstacle, spiral into shame, repeat. Sound familiar? That's because most of us are walking around with the same psychological wound. We believe we're the problem when actually our approach is the problem. Today I'm going to show you the framework that changed everything for me. Not because it's revolutionary or complex, but because it's brutally simple and designed for humans who actually live in the real world, not some productivity fantasy land where motivation never runs out. This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming a functional version of who you already are. And trust me, that's more powerful than any personality makeover you've been promised. The first thing you need to understand is why traditional goal setting feels like emotional torture. It's not your fault. You've been taught wrong. Most goal advice treats you like a machine. Input action, output result. But you're not a machine. You're a messy, emotional, overthinking human being with good days and terrible days, motivation that drops faster than your phone battery when you need it most, and a brain that loves to catastrophize at 2 a.m. The problem isn't that you don't know what you want. The problem is that you don't know what you actually want versus what you think you should want. There's a difference between goals that light you up and goals that drain you before you even start. I used to set goals based on what looked impressive to other people. Lose 30 pounds, read 50 books a year, wake up at 5 a.m. like some kind of productivity monk. These weren't my goals. They were performance goals designed to make me look like I had my act together. Real goals come from a different place. They come from that quiet voice inside that knows exactly what would make your life feel more alive, more you. But that voice gets drowned out by all the noise, like trying to have a conversation next to a construction site of other people's expectations. Here's the brutal truth. Most of your goals aren't actually yours. They're borrowed desires from Instagram, productivity gurus, or that friend who seems to have everything figured out. No wonder they feel impossible to achieve. You're trying to become someone else instead of becoming more yourself. So how do you figure out what you actually want? I call it the why test, and it's uncomfortably simple. For every goal you think you want, ask yourself why you want it. Then ask why again. Keep asking until you hit something that makes your chest feel lighter, not heavier. Example, I want to lose weight. Why? To look better. Why do you want to look better? So people will find me attractive. Why does that matter? Because I feel invisible right now. There it is. The real goal isn't weight loss. It's feeling seen and valued. Once you know your real why, everything changes. But knowing what you want is only half the battle. The other half is building a system that actually works for human beings who have jobs, relationships, bad days, and limited willpower. Most goal frameworks assume you're going to maintain peak motivation forever. That's like designing a boat that only works in perfect weather. What you need is a framework that works especially when you don't feel like it, when life gets messy, when your brain is telling you to quit. After years of trial and error, I discovered something that sounds almost too simple to work. The power of ridiculously small steps combined with consistent check-ins. Not groundbreaking, right? Except nobody actually does it correctly. Here's how most people break down goals. They take a big goal and divide it into slightly smaller big goals. Want to write a book? Plan to write a chapter per week. Want to get fit? Plan to work out 5 times a week. These aren't small steps. They're just smaller versions of overwhelming. Real micro steps are embarrassingly small. Want to write a book? Commit to opening your laptop and writing one sentence. That's it. Want to get fit? Commit to putting on your workout clothes. The goal isn't to write a masterpiece or have an amazing workout. The goal is to prove to yourself that you can do what you say you're going to do. Your brain is wired to resist change, but it can't resist change that feels insignificant. One sentence doesn't trigger your internal alarm system. Putting on workout clothes doesn't feel threatening. But here's the magic. Once you start, momentum takes over more often than not. Like how walking to the fridge somehow turns into reorganizing the entire kitchen. I know this sounds like I'm treating you like a child, but think about it. How many times have you not done something because it felt too big to start? Your brain is sophisticated enough to solve complex problems, but sometimes it needs to be tricked into beginning. The second part of the framework is weekly reviews, and this is where most people either skip ahead or roll their eyes. I get it. Reviews sound boring and corporate. But here's why they're actually your secret weapon. They turn failure into data instead of shame. Every week, I spend 15 minutes asking myself 3 questions. What worked? What didn't work? What needs to adjust? That's it. No judgment, no beating myself up, just honest assessment like a scientist studying their own experiment. This changes everything because it removes the moral weight from not hitting your targets. You're not a failure. You're collecting information. Your brain stops treating setbacks like character flaws and starts treating them like feedback. But here's what really makes this framework different. It's designed to evolve with you. Traditional goal setting assumes you'll want the same thing in the same way for months or years. That's not how humans work. Your circumstances change, your energy changes, your priorities shift. The framework adapts because it's built on principles, not rigid rules. The principle is consistent small action plus regular assessment. How that looks in your life will change based on what's happening, and that's not only okay, it's the point. Maybe in January you can write for 30 minutes every morning, but in March you get a new job and can only manage 10 minutes before bed. The framework doesn't break, it flexes. You don't abandon the goal, you adjust the approach. This flexibility is crucial because life is going to life all over your perfect plans. The question isn't whether obstacles will come up, it's whether your system can handle obstacles without falling apart completely. Now let me tell you about the part that nobody talks about in goal-setting advice, the emotional maintenance. Achievement isn't just about action. It's about managing the psychological ups and downs of pursuing something that matters to you. There will be days when you don't want to do the thing, and I'm not talking about lazy days. I'm talking about days when the idea of working toward your goal feels physically heavy. Days when you question if it's worth it, if you're deluding yourself, if you should just give up and watch Netflix instead. This is normal. This is not a sign that you should quit. It's a sign that you're human. The framework accounts for this by building in what I call minimum viable progress. The smallest possible action that keeps you connected to your goal without demanding energy you don't have. On good days, you might write for an hour. On terrible days, you might just read one paragraph of something related to your goal. Both count. Both keep the connection alive. Both prove to your subconscious that this still matters to you. The tools that support this don't have to be fancy. I use a simple note-taking app where I track my daily minimum action and weekly review. Some people prefer pen and paper. The tool matters less than the consistency of using it. What matters is creating a container for your progress that exists outside your memory and emotions. Because on the days when everything feels pointless, you need external evidence that you're actually moving forward, even when it doesn't feel like it. The motivation question comes up a lot. How do you stay motivated when the initial excitement wears off? The truth is, you don't. Motivation is like your favorite streaming service. It's never there when you actually need it, and trying to force it just makes everything buffer. Building a system that depends on feeling motivated is like building a business that only works when you're happy. Instead, you build identity through small, consistent actions. Every time you do what you said you were going to do, even when you don't feel like it, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Eventually, you start to see yourself as someone who follows through. And that identity shift is more powerful than any motivational speech. Let me show you how this actually works in real life, because theory without application is just intellectual entertainment. 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to start a YouTube channel. Not because I thought I'd become famous or make money, but because I had things to say and nowhere to say them. The traditional goal-setting approach would have been, I'm going to post 1 video per week and hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Instead, I used the framework. My real why. I wanted to feel like my thoughts mattered and could help other people feel less alone in their struggles. My micro step. Record 1 minute of footage, even if I never posted it. My weekly review question. What did I learn about communicating this week? The first month was brutal. I recorded dozens of 1-minute clips that were terrible. But here's what happened. Because my only commitment was 1 minute, I kept doing it. And because I was reviewing weekly, I started noticing patterns in what worked and what didn't. By month 3, I wasn't just recording 1 minute. I was naturally extending because I was in flow. But the foundation was still that ridiculously small daily commitment. When I had bad weeks, I could always fall back to 1 minute without feeling like I was failing. The obstacles were exactly what you'd expect. Technical problems, videos that felt stupid, comparison to other creators, days when I questioned the entire project. But because my system was built for obstacles, they became data points instead of reasons to quit. One particularly challenging week, I got negative comments on a video I'd spent hours on. The old me would have interpreted this as evidence that I should give up, but my weekly review helped me see it differently. I was getting engagement, which meant people were actually watching. The negative comments were teaching me about my audience and helping me refine my message. 6 months in, something shifted. I stopped thinking of myself as someone trying to make videos and started thinking of myself as someone who makes videos. That identity shift changed everything. I wasn't forcing myself to create content. I was expressing who I'd become. The results weren't what I originally planned, but they were better. I didn't hit 10,000 subscribers, but I built something more valuable, a sustainable creative practice that felt aligned with who I actually am. The channel grew organically because it came from an authentic place instead of a performance place. Here's what I want you to understand. The framework didn't make me a different person. It made me a more functional version of myself. I'm still overthinking, still prone to perfectionism, still have days when I doubt everything. But now I have a system that works with my personality instead of against it. The real transformation wasn't in my circumstances. It was in my relationship with the process of change itself. I stopped seeing setbacks as evidence of personal failure and started seeing them as information about what needed to adjust. Let me pause here and ask you something. What's one goal you've been avoiding because it feels too overwhelming to start? Not because you don't want it, but because every time you think about it, your brain immediately jumps to all the ways it could go wrong or all the work it would require. This is where most people get stuck, in the gap between wanting something and believing they can actually achieve it. The framework bridges that gap by making the first step so small that your brain can't find a good reason to resist it. Your life changes when you stop trying to become someone else and start becoming a more intentional version of who you already are. The goals that stick are the ones that feel like expressions of your authentic self, not improvements on your flawed self. So what can you expect if you actually implement this framework? First, you'll probably feel disappointed by how undramatic it is. There's no moment of sudden transformation, no lightning bolt of motivation that carries you to the finish line. It's just you, showing up consistently for something that matters to you, getting slightly better at it over time. But that's also what makes it sustainable. Dramatic changes require dramatic energy, and dramatic energy doesn't last. Subtle, consistent changes compound in ways that feel almost magical after enough time passes. You'll start to trust yourself differently, not because you become perfect, but because you become reliable to yourself in small ways. That reliability builds on itself until you genuinely believe you can do what you say you're going to do. You'll also start to see obstacles differently. Instead of proof that you should quit, they become interesting puzzles to solve. Your relationship with difficulty changes from avoidance to curiosity. Most importantly, you'll discover that the real reward isn't achieving the goal. It's becoming the kind of person who achieves goals. That identity shift affects every area of your life, not just the specific thing you're working on. Before we wrap up, I want to address the voice in your head that's probably saying, "This sounds too simple to work," or that you've tried similar things before and they didn't stick. That voice is your brain trying to protect you from disappointment by convincing you not to try. Here's the thing about simple. Simple isn't easy. Simple is often harder than complex because it requires consistency instead of intensity, and most of us are better at intensity than consistency. Like how we can binge watch 8 episodes but can't meditate for 5 minutes daily. But simple is also more sustainable, more adaptable, and more likely to become part of who you are instead of something you do temporarily. The framework works not because it's revolutionary, but because it's designed for actual humans living actual lives with actual limitations. It doesn't require you to become a productivity machine or eliminate all your flaws. It just requires you to show up consistently for something that matters to you. So here's my challenge. Pick one goal that's been sitting in the back of your mind, making you feel guilty every time you remember it. Use the why test to make sure it's actually yours. Break it down into a micro step so small it feels almost silly. Commit to that micro step for 1 week and do a simple review at the end. That's it. Don't plan the whole journey. Don't set a timeline for the big achievement. Don't tell everyone what you're doing. Just prove to yourself that you can do something small consistently for 7 days. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear about the goal you've been avoiding and what your micro step might be. Sometimes sharing the intention makes it more real. Your goals aren't too big. Your first steps have been too big. Your willpower isn't broken. Your system has been working against your natural psychology instead of with it. You don't need to become someone else. You need to become more intentionally yourself. The framework is simple, but don't mistake simple for insignificant. The most powerful changes often come from the most ordinary actions, repeated with extraordinary consistency. What goal will you stop avoiding and start approaching? What micro step will you take today to prove to yourself that change is possible? Your future self is waiting for you to begin, not to be perfect, not to have it all figured out, but just to begin. Start ridiculously small, stay brutally consistent, and watch what becomes possible when you stop fighting your own psychology and start working with it instead. Remember what I said at the beginning? You're not bad at achieving goals. You've just been trying to build that skyscraper without laying the foundation first. The foundation isn't motivation or willpower or some perfect plan. The foundation is proving to yourself, one micro step at a time, that you can do what you say you're going to do. And once that foundation is solid, there's no limit to what you can build on top of it.